back to the phone lines. We'll talk next to David. He's listening in Delena, Missouri. Hi, David.
Yeah, I teach on Wednesday nights with a couple of other people, and we're going through Genesis, and whenever it comes to Cain and Abel, and he killed his brother, and then God told him that he would wander around, and he was worried about other people killing him. The question was from a young man in our group, well, if he came from Adam and Eve, how was there other people that he would be afraid of?
Well, I mean, you have to note that Adam and Eve lived almost 1,000 years. That's given to us directly from Genesis chapter 5. Not only that, but he fulfilled God's charge to be fruitful and to increase in number, as he's commanded to do in Genesis chapter 1. So while the scripture doesn't tell us where Cain got his wife, the logical implication is that he married either a sister or a niece. Now, that's not a problem because genetic imperfections accumulated gradually over time, and therefore there was no prohibition against incest in the earliest stages of human civilization. The Levitical law against an incestuous relationship was given by God hundreds of years after Cain at the time of Moses, and therefore familial relationships were preserved and birth defects were prevented. So again, there was nothing wrong whatsoever in the early stages of human civilization for someone like Cain to marry a sister or a niece.
Okay, and I was just wanting to confirm of what I had thought and I prayed about, but I didn't want to give, a young teenager any ideas that was my thoughts and read into something. And that's what I had felt for a long time, when I read it the first time too. Where did this come from? And then of course I've heard this type of the genealogy and stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a very good point you're making there with respect to genealogies. I mean, it's very clear that the genealogies are symmetrical and they're deliberately arranged. They're not chronologically. I mean, the gaps in the genealogies in the same way. We don't have all the information about all the progeny of Adam and Eve. We only have highlights, and certainly the story of Cain and Abel is one of those highlights. And again, the highlights are there, not so much to give us a chronology so that we can figure out a time frame, but it communicates God's purposes in creation, and certainly the story of Cain and Abel does that in a very powerful way.
Yes, okay. All right, I just wanted to make sure because I've never had that question brought up, and the pastor's son that leads the group, he couldn't answer it, and he said, we'll check into that, and I'm part of the group that helps him, and I said, man, I'll find out.
Well, what you're doing is such a great model for everybody listening in. I mean, we don't all know all the answers. I mean, I certainly can testify to that. So when you don't know the answer to a question, you simply say, let me research and return. And that's precisely what you're modeling, and that's good for everybody to hear.